quickly through a few slides, but if you want to go back and talk about anything, let me know. Today we'll have a little time to have a discussion in a Zoom room like we did last week. So I'm looking forward to that. So we are the Special Education Technology Center, and this is our third week of our book study on the Comprehensive Literacy for All by Karen Erickson and David Copenhaver. And hopefully you guys are all accessing the book through Kindle or the hard copy somehow. And we're excited that you're here and you're back and ready to talk about this next chapter on emergent reading. So you might have, in this book, reading is characterized by the emergent reading and conventional reading. And there's a lot of research now about those two things, and that's how we are seeing these kind of stages. And they talk about emergent reading being all of the behaviors and the understandings of learners of any age that precede the conventional reading skills. And then in this chapter, chapter 4, they talk about specifically shared reading and independent reading, and specific strategies and skills that you can work on while you're doing those. And they had some structured and unstructured ways to do that, and noting that both work for students. And so looking at increasing interest around print and engagement during these opportunities. And I saw that in a lot of the book snaps that we're talking about, that engagement and talking about, why am I doing this? What's in it for me? I saw. So getting that hook for readers, beginning readers. This is again from, Brenda shared this with me from the Facebook book study. And this is from the book, page 50, about what emergent readers must do. And this is not a short list. These are some really big tasks. So as you're reading through this, we can think about how can we work on these skills. And they talk about this in the book a bit. And they're going to also talk about some of these a little bit more later. But gosh, I really kind of identify with well, all of this, but that desire to learn to read, and how can we help our emergent readers get with that desire? Any thoughts about these concepts? Or and again, you can put something in the chat if you're comfortable, or you can unmute and feel free to speak up.
I thought it was interesting in the book where it talked about how parents, research shows that parents place a high priority on literacy for their kids, but that kids with disabilities might be less interested and less motivated. I thought that was interesting as compared to the previous research.
I thought so too, Linda, because we talk a lot about, that kids with significant disabilities often have fewer opportunities and less exposure to the literacy and the language that goes with it, asking questions about the book and things like that. But I thought that was an interesting piece of research too. Anyone else want to share any thoughts about this?
Hi, I'm Terry Cox. I was kind of interested that in this chapter it spoke about the audiobooks, or not audiobooks, the ebooks and all the electronics and cartoons, and that would be too distracting for our students with disabilities. And I kind of had mixed feelings about that, because I thought at least it got students a little engaged. And I was thinking of a few little things I had on my iPad that some of my students liked that were a little more interactive, but maybe I misunderstood what I was reading, but it sounded like they were discouraging us from doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were trying to raise our awareness about the fact that that could distract. But I think I had mixed feelings about that too, because I think it depends on when the animation is presented. So for example, if the words are read and highlighted first so that attention is on the text, and then there's an animation following that, or vice versa, that can be different than animation at the same time as the text is being read. So that's something to think about. I think that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and I know my team was talking about, of course, with distance learning. I think it depends, because I'm a speech path, on the communication level of the student. There's some students where, especially if they're on the spectrum, where they're self-soothing or stimulating with electronic books, and really they need a lot of that joint attention, joint activity. And so even though we can, like, say, screen share, we're choosing to have our book near our face because we want them to engage with us and pick up on our affect.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. Ellen, I think you wanted to say something.
I was really lucky last October to go and listen to 2 days with Karen and David on emergent readers. And this got talked about quite a bit. And basically Karen just kept coming back to that the research showed that when the animation was involved, reading was not the goal. That they didn't see an increase in reading scores with animation. So I think you have to think about what what the goal is. Is it's keeping them engaged to learn some vocabulary, or keeping, what is it that they're getting out of it? But that Karen just kept saying, okay, that's fine, you can do that, but they're not going to learn to read with that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, and I think again that they didn't really define the animation and when and how it occurs either. So I think that can be a variable that maybe wasn't measured, possibly.
I think I've had discussions with this regarding this over the last few years, and there are a lot of people that are concerned because reading entertainment has not proven to result in actual reading. And so if we get, sometimes we can decide that we're going to set up reading entertainment so everybody can access it with switches and all the kinds of things, but it ends up being more of an activity and not enough targeted instruction on actual reading. And so I hear both sides of this. Both from you all today in the book and in discussions over the last few years, even those that started IntelliTools. I remember talking with somebody who was one of the original authors of all of that stuff. Gosh, it was probably almost 10 years ago now, and her saying, there's an ongoing discussion on it needs to be engaging and it needs to be relevant, but if we've reduced it down to entertainment, then it's not education. They're not actually showing gains in reading. So even though we can all argue it all, the data isn't showing that alone results in learning to read. I think that's where that's coming from.
Mm-hmm. And when we think about shared reading, like the authors talk about in this, oh, I can't get to my next slide. Let's see. Okay, so see, I'm just going to skip ahead. When we talk about shared reading, they talk about that it's about that interaction, right? So I could see if it's taking away from the interaction, but it's all about the interaction, and a lot of what the students learn is about is the adult's communication with the student during that time. One thing I also liked about the shared reading, the way they put this in the book is about that it's just and independent reading. It's interaction with print, and especially right now when families are home and you have what you have, right, for books and things like that. But it could be things other than books. It could be something, a recipe you had on the wall, or signs outside if you're going on a walk in your neighborhood. And I like, especially now, thinking about that and what do we have that kids can use and kids can
Or a cereal box, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. In this chapter, when they talk about shared reading, there's a lot, like Brenda mentioned, there's a lot of research in this book, and there's a lot of research around shared reading. This isn't brand new right now, right? But I think it's nice to look at some of the research and how it applies to different students with different disabilities too, and what they've seen. So I liked pulling out a few of these points that they found, and wondering if anybody has any experience or any just thoughts about these for this.
So one of the comments in the chat was that they've had really successful experiences using buddy programs, and kids are loving it and getting a lot of practice, and it just sets up that extra interaction with either volunteering adults, and I'm going to insert, but you know, buddy systems are typically same-age peers, so that that's a really neat comment from the chat here.
Great, thank you. All right, we're going to move on. So by now, if you've read this chapter, you might be really familiar with Follow the Car, or if you've done this with students before. I was introduced to shared reading with strategies. So they talk about structured and unstructured ways to do shared reading, and that both have value. When I started doing shared reading with students with significant communication needs, I was using the RAP strategy, and it's totally out of my mind right now who that is from, but I could look it up and tell you. But read, ask, answer, prompt, and we would talk about less of the prompt, but reading the page, asking a question, answering if there's that initiation pieces in there. And so it's similar to Follow the Car. So commenting, and then they've changed that A from asking a question in the past to asking for participation, and then responding. And so you can kind of see the flow chart of how you would do that. And so this is, again, focused on that interaction with students. I think we're getting quite a few comments in the chat, so I'm going to leave this open for a minute.
Some of these comments are just related to defining that entertainment versus versus actually reading, and the graphics versus actual animation. So it's just, people are just kind of agreeing that graphics can be supportive and animation can be distracting, and it's kind of kid by kid.
That's a hot topic.
So,
that'll be good when we talk about our Zoom room. We're going to chat a little bit about what resources are you using or can we use. So that might come up again. That'd be great.
Yeah, that might just be something that we add to our group discussion, our smaller group discussion about, you know, why do we like a resource, and gut check, is it entertainment, or can we alter the way we use it so that it is that it is both. What struck me with Follow the Car was the wait, and I ended up highlighting all the times that they said wait, even on the very first page of Follow the Car. So number one was, you know, comment and wait, ask for participation and wait, and it says many students with significant cognitive disabilities need 15, 20, or even 30 more seconds of silence. after an adult's comment in order to think and coordinate a reply. And I think that the key there is the significant disabilities, because how they're accessing their comment requires them to form an opinion and then elicit all the motor planning that gets them to, I like that. Maybe you have a page that maybe you're switch access to, I like it and I don't like it. I mean, maybe you've simplified the way that participation can be so that it's not physically taxing, but it still takes time. I think a lot of times when I co-treat with OTs, they remind me that if someone's going to do a motor plan, and you decide to ask the question again, or you've decided that your wait time of 10 seconds means that they probably need further explanation of your question, then they shut down that motor plan, they listen to you again, and then they have to start their motor plan again. And I think sometimes our very helpful rephrasing of questions and our very helpful, even verbal encouragement can slow down their ability to form the motor plan required to participate. So that 20, 30 or 15, 20 or 30 more seconds of silence, that's a long time. And I think whether maybe you need maybe you and I need a timer, or they need a timer or something, so that we allow that wait time. That part stuck out to me on this introduction to Follow the Car.
Gail Van Teutenhove calls that auditory clutter. When we say something, then we say it again, and we don't give enough time. And it's so true. I think parents are a really great tool to help us remember too. Like you were mentioning OTs. I've had parents, because of just the great interaction and they know their kids so well, I've asked a question or I've engaged in a page, like, and I'm like, this comment is so right on. I've got something great to say here. I know it's going to initiate something. And then I've moved on too quickly before waiting long enough. And then the student's responding, and I didn't always catch it. And the parent was there. And this happened one time when this mom said, oh, she's, it was a really subtle nod for yes. And she's agreeing with what you just said before. And I'm like, I totally missed that whole thing. So I think you're right, Brenda, about that wait time. Okay, anything else in the chat I should, before I
No, I
move
know.
on?
I think it's, I think people are, they're just agreeing with the auditory clutter. And then I think there'll be further discussion about entertainment versus
Great,
versus instruction when we get in the small groups.
great. Fun to see what's important, right? Okay, so once kids are initiating and they have that piece of the interaction of the shared reading, then you put that crowd in the car. And so they talk about these 5 different types of questions: completion, recall, open-ended, WH, and distance, and how you can incorporate that into your car time. And I'm just gonna skip ahead once. Along the lines of paper and electronic, in Tar Heel Shared Reader, which is a newer tool for us. So Tar Heel Reader has been around, and it's online accessible books for free that students can access. They can use a switch, they can use touchscreen and or swipe in an iPad. But these books allow students to, in Tar Heel Reader, hear the text read aloud. In Tar Heel Shared Reader, it's allowing for that adult-student interaction with those comments built in. So on Project Core, I remember I would see, I think it's Project Core, they have a whole module about shared reading. And they have lists of, for while you're reading your book, like little cues for you to remember what kind of question you're asking, what kind of comment, and you're doing that book for like maybe a whole week, which is nice too, that you're that repeated reading. And on Tar Heel Shared Reader, you can, people have put their comments on, you can see what the comments are, and then it gives you core vocabulary to use during that time for the students to use. Are people using Tar Heel Shared Reader yet? And if so, I'd love to hear your experiences.
While people are gathering thoughts on that, somebody wrote that they really liked the idea of taking a picture walk before reading a book and just going through the book slowly and waiting to see how students respond to illustration or text. And I think that was really important. It's something that I have noticed, that if you go into like your basic library, like library time, you'll see that people are, you know, they're taking a book and saying, what does the cover tell us? What are predictions we can make? If you take a book like Stripes, right, where the girl's covered in all these things, and it's like, I wonder what this is. Let's make some predictions. Do you think she ate a rainbow? Do you think, and they're doing all of this, like, let's just open up the box of possibilities just by the cover of what this could be about, and what words we might need to have to even talk about this. And it looks like she's turning lots of colors. I'm wondering if we even know where our color pages are. And there's just a way for that, not only so that doesn't happen when very often in classrooms where it's just with special ed or sometimes it's glossed over a little bit in inclusion, but it's important because it also is just talking out loud, like, you guys are going to, even to typicals, we're going to need to know I think we're going to have to talk about our colors. I think we might have to, I wonder if this, and then you can throw something else out there, like, I wonder if she fell off a bike. No, there's nothing about this picture that talks about bicycles, so that was a clue that it's probably not about bicycles. I mean, you just start kind of talking out loud about all the things that you're using to start to make predictions about books and how we're going to use pictures to analyze the text that we're hearing or listening. So I think it's when we talk about covers and we talk about books and we talk about things before we get started, I think that we immediately can make some people make predictions and people make connections even before they know what it's about. So I think that's regardless of the book that you're using, it's something that a lot of typical like kindergarten teachers do, and then we kind of lose that as kids get older. And I think our kids continue to need a lot of that being explicitly talked about, even in preparation for, I'm going to have to, where is that in my device? Or, wow, this book has, planes, trains, and automobiles. I wonder if we can find our vehicles page before we even get started. I wonder if we can find our word that we might need for this. So anyways.
And they're talking about like a lot of language concepts in the chat. Maybe you were about to share that. Go ahead.
Oh, Go ahead. I've been using Tar Heel Shared Reader. I just started using it since I got back from ATIA, where I was with Karen Erickson for the day, which was super fun. But I've been using it in a variety of groups. So I've got a group that are my AAC users, and we've been using it to either find it in their AAC device or the core words that come across the bottom of each book. If you touch them with a touch screen or click on them with the mouse, they'll say the word. And so we've been like, oh, look at the snake, let's see if we can find the word look. And I'll scroll through the words on the bottom and let me know when I'm on the page that has look, and, slowly go through. And, they get super excited to get up on the board and touch it. And I use it a lot. We've been really working hard on doing something to publish our work. And I use it a lot for like background information for whatever we're going to write about. So say the first grade class is reading a book about Arbor Day. We might find a book on Tar Heel Reader or Shared Reader about trees and gather that background information. And so I'll even use it with some of my kids with, some, learning disabilities, just to start learning to recognize that word and find it in the array of 6 words that are up there. And so the kids are really engaged. And I think the thing that Karen shared that was really fascinating to me about this was, like, if you just kind of read the book, they're focusing like on the picture and not the words. They've done like scans of where their eyes are looking. And when you start adding like the shared reading and you're pointing the words and you're finding, comments to make, they start looking at the words more. So it's been really fun. Not every book in shared reader have people put comments in for possible core words to model. And if there's a favorite book in Tar Heel Reader, you can just open it in shared reader and you can put the comments right in as well. So it's been, I've really enjoyed using it.
Thanks, Heidi. What you were talking about with the print referencing, I think that is something that we don't always remember, and how they were tracking the eyes and what they were seeing. We don't always remember about the print referencing when we're reading with kids. Sorry, I can't get rid of the reading controls right now. It's just pulling up shared reader to show. But Sophia Benson Goldberg has been working with Karen Erickson at Center for Literacy and Disabilities, and she did a webinar for us earlier this year. And I don't know if any of you were able to catch it, but she was talking about the print referencing and students with CDKL5, and where they would, and it was distance learning, and they would use Tar Heel shared reader and do like a heat map of the eye gaze of where they're looking during the book. And then she would instruct the parents about how to do print referencing, just even like we were talking about the beginning, the title page or the front of the book. That's my favorite time to do it, because I can remember, I see, where should we start reading this book? Reading this title here, or there's a bee like Brandon. And then after showing parents how to do that, they did the print referencing while doing shared reading with their child. And they could see the heat map of tracking where their eyes went. And for this student, she didn't have a huge group, but you could see that she was now attending to the letters. And I guess the research is that students don't actually do that unless we do pull out attention to the print. So this is Tar Heel shared reader. There is also Tar Heel reader. Yes.
There's a question about, they said they've never used Tar Heel reader. How do you use the words at the bottom for commenting?
So this is part of the Universal Core Vocabulary. If you're familiar with Project Core, they have 36 core vocabulary words. You can change how many show up at the bottom, but these are, you can have more, or I guess fewer than this. And it's intended to be used, you could use it with modeling or for the student response for the commenting, but your student could also use their communication system. So they might use this if they're just emerging with communication system, or maybe it's not even available at the time. But for that modeling and for commenting. Sorry, I'm just checking out the chat about this. Pictures can support comprehension. Okay, so we're talking about, Linda, are you talking about with Tar Heel Reader with the pictures?
No, what Brenda, what somebody was just saying about what you were saying about the heat tracking and showing how the pictures, kids tend to focus on the pictures rather than the words unless we do print referencing.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So it's kind of like what we could also do print referencing with ebooks too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So when you click these words down here, they do speak, but then you also have the text up here. I see bugs. oh, this scrolls through your, sorry, my things are in the way of me moving to the next page. Why am I not moving to the next page? Heidi, what am I doing wrong? Or is it because I'm sharing?
Well, I think, are you trying to move to the next page with the arrows on the bottom by the words?
Yeah, I know those scroll through your core, right?
Go through the words, and maybe
Yeah.
you're sharing, because I don't see the little thing to,
I think it is. I've had this problem before showing Tar Heel
I
Shared
don't
Reader.
see the thing to turn the page that's usually over on the right.
Right. So, but there's a question about the PCS symbols versus the text in the book. But just that each page will have the text, and then it'll also have your symbols that you can have fewer or more.
And the symbols aren't necessarily to match the text. If you look up in the top left and you see the little speech bubble, it says, let's look at the book. So look is the core word that you're modeling. So you're like, let's look at the book, or, you know, look at the bug, you know, so the word that you may not find, I mean, that's kind of, it's basically to allow you to use those core words to comment on the pictures and not necessarily build the sentence that's there.
Right. Yeah. You still want it to be interesting and engaging. So you still want to just read the book and read the page.
Oh, I see. So the core words go with the comment
Mhm.
rather than with the text. That makes sense. Thank you for explaining that.
Right. But then your student also might comment something else, right? You might say, look at the bug, and then they might say, turn, and you might say, you want to have a turn looking at the bug, or whatever, you know, you're going to connect their comment.
One of the things I love about it is when I'm trying to get like my paraeducators to model the core words, if I make sure I pick a book in Tar Heel Reader that the little Q is up there, it's like a no-brainer. It's like you can just go right there, and it's like, okay, whatever word it says right there, I want you to find on the bottom, you know, and model it there, and you can talk about where it is on their AAC device, or
Yeah.
it makes it really easy for parents to kind of know what to model, and, you know, paraeducators or even like teachers or peers. So it's a nice resource for that.
Yeah, I agree. Gives a little bit of structure when people want that. I'm going to go back to our slides. You will have we've been doing homework for creating book snaps, and this week you have the option. You can make another book snap for our upcoming chapter. We love those, and it's they're great, and I like to see what you're pulling out from it. But you can also research some of these tools that we're going to talk about during our Zoom room or Tar Heel Shared Reader, and you know, obviously just do what works for you. But sometimes I need someone to say, okay, look at this tool. This is your week to do it. And then maybe in the beginning of next week, while people are signing on, while we're getting ready, like we're sharing our book snaps, maybe we can just continue a conversation about some of those, like Tar Heel Shared Reader or Tar Heel Reader, other accessible books that you found. So moving on to independent reading, and then we're going to start a discussion. I thought this was an interesting quote from the book here. All about just having access to books that students can read, and how, you know, this starts before birth. This right away we have print around us, but for our students with significant needs, how do they access these books? How do we just have them available? I liked the authors. I think this was in the shared reading section, but the authors talked about, you know, bringing a book bin out to the playground, and when kids are in the sandbox, you're reading to them. So just incorporating these opportunities throughout the day. But I've always felt like independent reading and access to that was kind of challenging. What are your thoughts?
For kids that can physically handle actual books, I really like what I think of as multi-level texts that are appropriate for any age, like the Dorling Kindersley books that'll have, you know, text broken up in small chunks on the page, but pictures that are age appropriate for any age from birth to adult, pretty much. So things like about castles or airplanes or things like that. And then the other thing that I found works well is like find books where you're seeking something, like there used to be Where's Waldo, you know? Or they have ones like that are called Look and Find, where things are made out of real, like furniture made out of pretzels and all kinds of things. So, but really high interest and engagement. So where the focus for the student is probably not the text on the page, but the text is still there, or there might be small pieces of the text they can access.
So Linda, this is making me think we need to get right into our Zoom rooms, because this is just
okay.
No, this is
Sorry.
perfect. The perfect segue. No, don't be sorry. This is exactly the type of thing we want to talk about. So what are the resources for independent reading for students? And then how can we embed the opportunities for independent or shared reading throughout the day? So let me get on our Zoom rooms, because we will spend about 10 minutes talking about this. And I think I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. Now, Kristen, I'm having trouble remembering. Oh, breakout room. Okay.
I put a link to the Google Doc where we'll be taking notes. There'll be someone in the room facilitating and helping take notes, but last week I had a hard time keeping up with you all, and we had trouble with the access to the chat. So we wanted you to be able to type right in ideas as well as speak up in these Zoom rooms.
Great. So I'm just assigning our staff, so Kristen, Brenda, and Linda, each to a room.
I think it'd be great if some of you are clicking on the link to go to the Google Doc, because I don't know if you can access chat once you get there. We'll find out. But if you get it up, then you'll be ready to take some notes.
Okay.
I'm going to pause the recording as well, Sari.
Oh,
in the way they can. Let's see. I can't see my notes, but I will go to them now.
Sorry, here they are. I just had to start a recording again.
Okay. And then one teacher was saying that anytime a student's initiating interest in a book, she's giving them that opportunity, because for classroom, those times maybe are more rare. So even with that scheduled time, anytime kids approach her. As far as locations, they talked about Epic, we talked about PowerPoint books, app, Books, and we found a resource that has some picture books for older students. So we put that link in.
Great, that's really helpful.
Okay, so I'll in there unless anyone in the group wants to jump in.
Okay, I guess you did a good job covering it. Thanks, Kristen. Brenda, how about your group?
Sure. We didn't even touch on opportunities throughout the day, but we sort of did. I backtrack. So we talked about Epic. It's a teacher subscription. There's a 30-day free trial, and it's free at home right now. So something to think about. Sorry for all those. It's not my jam. And it has ebooks, but it highlights as it reads, and it does a few of those things. So there are books for older kids. So I think that was a good thing too. I think that the getting physical books in the hands of students kind of addresses that opportunities throughout the day. So it was about cutting the binding off of books and laminating them and having books available like in a basket in a bathroom. She was talking about how a lot of our kids are waiting. So they're waiting because there's 2 or 3 going to go to the bathroom, or somebody's going to have a tube feeding. So they're just kind of waiting, and wait time can be book time. And using tongue depressors or those Velcro things to build up so that they can do the physical turn taking of books. So making sure that there are some still and always physical books can help increase those opportunities throughout the day. And then under iPad, if you go to iTunes or iBooks, actually it's iBooks. You can read along. Any book that says read along, read to me, or read interactive is one of those kind of Pete the Cat books that use the switch control and the turn the page. But basic stuff like step-by-step or single message buttons can also be used to increase engagement. Old style Go Talks or Cheap Talks, you can have each cell read a page. And then at the very end, somebody was mentioning reading avenues, and Core First Curriculum is something that their family, their school has invested in that has kind of met all the needs, and that was really comprehensive. Anything else from group 2 that I missed? Okay.
Okay, that's great. A lot of good resources there. I think people have a lot to pour over these next several weeks. Okay, so Linda, how was what happened in room 3?
Room 3 was great. Some of our ideas have already been mentioned, so just for the sake of time, I'm going to try to hit some of the ones that haven't been mentioned, if that sounds good.
That's perfect.
Room 3, jump in if I missed something. So we did talk a little bit more about some of the shared reading ideas, just like the buddy reading program. And somebody said that not only did they have adults or peers, but they have life skills kids who will come down and read to the younger students, and that they love that. So, and then somebody said that they really like using the AR reading program to get kids, books kids can read at their level. There's Bookshare and Washington Library for the Blind, and we weren't sure if that was the actual name for it, but for students who have vision issues. And then also that there's Teachers Pay Teachers Make Books on UDoodle, which is an app for students who have CVI. And if you actually look up UDoodle and CVI, you'll find it, but that's an actual specifically helpful for kids with CVI, and Teachers Pay Teachers Make Books for that. And then we talked again about opportunities throughout the day where to have lots of books around, but also to just take all those times where there's print, like at snack time, you can read the jokes on the milk carton, or you can read the ingredients, or the warnings about the different allergies, but just that whole thing about like reading cereal boxes, all those items always have print on them. So reading, at those times. So those were some of the things we talked about.
Great, you guys covered a lot too. And I haven't heard about the UDoodle app, so I'm excited to check that one out. Anyone else want to share anything that maybe wasn't touched on or that you just thought about before we wrap up?
Yeah, there is one resource. It's actually out of the United Kingdom by C. Collins called Big Cat. And it's free, so you might just peruse it. I don't know. I've used it as an SLP. It's on my iPad. There's a whole series of them. And as I just looked it up now, because it was a while ago that I downloaded many of these, and they're really fun. They are interactive, but it's the same kind of thing. The story can be read to the children can read it and record themselves. But I think there's a lot more to it, as I just kind of quickly did a Google search. So
that's great.
Might be something to look into.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. Also, I mean, you can look on YouTube and find lots of people doing shared reading with AAC. Lots of, there's different styles too, you'll see. If you want more resources for emergent readers, these are a few good, they link, modules that you could go to and get more than you could ever want on these topics. So if you really want to dig in there, but you also see some examples and videos in these, and then tons of resources, handouts, ways to keep you organized while you're doing it. So that'll be on our list, and we'll email the link to these notes, and actually it's going to look like this. I'll just show you. You're going to get a link to Google Doc or a folder. And it will have chapter 4 emergent reading had several, I forgot to mention, several resources. I put in here some resources on books from Karen Erickson and Jane Farrell, and then also some shared reading goals from Karen Erickson, so you can look at that. if that's helpful for you, and then also our notes. But you'll also have notes from the other sessions, and again, the book snap assignment. So as we're wrapping up here, feel free to do another book snap, or spend your time focusing on some of these other tools that you've heard from folks, whatever works best for you. And our next session is May 1st. We'll be doing talking about emergent writing.